Hey there, everybody. It is time for the Bronx Buzz. If you were with us the past couple of weeks, we have reformatted the Bronx Buzz eventually to be a formal Bronx Buzz podcast. But I like the whole concept because it goes back to my roots being a radio announcer, and that's much more what this is like. So we kind of changed the way we look, and we're going to spend our time with one guest in a podcast, but really in an interview. And I'm so pleased because this particular guest is a friend and colleague, and she just got a new position we're going to talk about. It is Judy Mills Johnson, who's the chair of the Cortlandt Park Alliance. Nice to see you in this format, Judy. How are you?
Thank you, Gary. It's so nice to talk to you.
Yep, we appreciate having you on. So you were the vice chair, and then you became the chair. We're going to talk a lot about the greatest park in the city, the third largest park in the city, Van Cortlandt Park. But just to begin with, we're happy about this development. This is a good thing.
I'm very happy. I'm humbled and a little nervous about being up to the task. But the thing about the Alliance is we have a great board. So it's not just me. We have, you know, 18 wonderful people on our board. We have a great executive director. We have wonderful staff. We are
Let me
there to
just
support
interject.
them.
That means Stephanie and Christina. Let's be very.
That does mean Stephanie and
They
Christina.
they get the credit.
They
We
get
now,
all
and
the
I
credit.
should mention because you said nice things about the board. Well, I am a board member, so if people are wondering if I'm advocating for Van Cortlandt Park, undeniably yes, in public.
Undeniably, yes. And you are a
Anyway,
great board member because
thank
you
you.
do things like this and get us in the public eye.
Yeah, we talk about. But anyway, I know I interrupt. That's my job. Uh,
Please.
so so what were you saying there? So you have all these wonderful things. Keep going.
Right. So, it's, and we're really, our purpose is to work with Parks Department and to collaborate and make the park, as you said, it's the best park in the city,
There
and
you
to
go.
ensure that it stays that way. And we all know these are tough economic times. Um, we have a mayor who had promised us that he campaigned on the fact that parks would be 1% of his budget, and it isn't. And he's actually cut parks budget, so parks is having a rough time. Um, and we do what we can. And what's amazing about our alliance is how much our staff does with the little bit that we have.
We're,
It's extraordinary.
we're going to illustrate that. I wanted to bring back a memory between us. You were doing surveys of board members. People are going to find this interesting.
Right.
You were doing surveys of board members, and I was one of the people in in the odd position, for me to be interviewed instead of being the
Right.
interviewer. And you asked me, like why Van Cortlandt Park or why parks? And I don't know if you recall, but I made it up on the spot. But I said that it's because the parks are solutions to literally everything in our lives. It gets people healthier,
Absolutely.
things out, the recreation. You learn about the environment. It's educational. It's nature in the middle of an urban jungle, which you can see behind me. So anyway, that you recall me
That's
saying that?
right. Gary, we live in New York City. We're city kids. Parks are our backyards. That's where we live. That's where our kids play. My oldest learned to ride his bike in Van Cortlandt Park. All three of my boys played on soccer teams and lacrosse teams. If you go to our park on a weekend in the summer, you will see everybody doing everything. There are birthday parties, there are quinceañeros, there are barbecues. People are exercising, people are sun tanning. They're
Oh,
running their dogs.
and,
They're joy.
or they could be riding horses. I
They
mean,
could be riding horses.
riding horses. Listen, we're going to get into the park and we're going to illustrate some of the things that you have talked about and the events coming up. I mean, the shindig is a very big thing, and we're going to spend some time on it. But you told me something earlier that I didn't know. You are a landscaper. You have been a landscaper. I had no idea. So let's talk about that. Why?
So,
How? Et cetera, et cetera.
so my background after college was I was a social worker up
Oh,
in the Hudson County, up in the mid Hudson Valley. And I kind of got exposed to gardening through working with farm workers. And I started my own garden. And I kind of thought it was amazing that you could put a seed in the ground in May and have a tomato in September. I mean, mind blowing, right? I'm a city kid. So I
and
got
wait,
very
where did you grow up then?
Washington, D.C.
So you grew up in
Different
Washington.
city.
It's a city. Okay.
It's a city.
Okay. Go ahead.
Southern girl, kind of.
Mhm.
Um, so I got more interested in the horticulture side, and so in my late 20s, I went to the New York Botanical Garden and did a 2-year course in horticulture. And so I am a horticulturist, and I started a business which turned into being a build and design landscape construction company. We did maintenance, and most of my work was in Riverdale or some in Manhattan, a lot of penthouses, and some in Lower Westchester,
So
but
you
a
did.
lot in the Bronx.
So this is very interesting to me. Two things about it. Number one, then you are the result of one of the great resources of the Bronx, the Bronx Botanical Garden. So let's just identify that and give, because that's what.
That's true. That is true.
You tell me about in Manhattan. Is this apartment work, or is this like the people who design the hedges on
No,
Central Park West and all those fancy buildings?
both and you kind of haven't lived until you put a birch tree on the top of an elevator to get it up to the floor where you want to plant it. You
Well,
have to
then I
have,
have not lived. I can tell you.
yeah, it's really an experience, I'll tell you. I knew every super and back entrance into apartment buildings in many parts of Manhattan. So, and hey, I started doing this in the 80s, and there were talking about some of these plantings in front of buildings. We literally chained our shrubs to iron rods in the ground because crime was so bad that people would steal plants as fast as we could plant them. So that's not true in the city anymore. That's a good thing.
My job would be then to listen to what you said and then somehow figure out how to make a segue into you being a board member in Van Cortlandt Park and then ultimately the chair in Van Cortlandt Park. But in fact, it seems very logical. At what point did you say, and you've already established that your kids played in the park. You always knew about the park. You were, you were one of the people, one of the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who use the park. Um, but at what point did you cross the line, and then did they get onto the board and decide you wanted to do something concrete?
So it's a very uncreative answer. They asked me.
Oh, they asked you.
And it was very persuasive.
Oh, okay.
Um,
I used the word concrete, which is exactly opposite what we're talking about. So they asked you because they knew of you as a landscaper, and they said, "Wow, she's local. She uses the park. She
yeah,
knows the park."
I
And
think so.
go ahead.
I
And
also
what's your
I
passion?
also have community organizing experience. You know, I was on different boards in Riverdale and head of the PTA at my kids' school, which was kind of a 2,000 family big thing. So I have roots in this community, no pun intended.
That was better than my use of the word
That was
concrete.
pretty good, right? So I'm a business owner in Riverdale, Yonkers. Horticulture and Van Cortlandt Park go hand in hand, right? I know my trees, I know my flowers, I know my plants. As I said, my family has used that park, and I understand what a resource it is. So when I was asked to come on the board, I thought, oh, this is really exciting and really great. Happy
Right.
to do it.
And now you are obviously the chair of the board. um, when you think about the notion of parks, and of course Van Cortlandt Park, um, what effect do you think it's had on the Bronx, on people of the Bronx? I mean, even talk about your own family. Listen, I have a portrait of my son pitching Little League or even less than Little League in Van Cortlandt Park that's hanging in our kitchen. Um, but talk to me about the effect or what
Yeah,
you see from families, especially so many who come
right,
to the park. And
right.
I mean, the list of activities goes forever. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But I think our park crosses so many socioeconomic levels and people, like New York. They like to say New York is sort of a tapestry and a rainbow. It is. When you go into Van Cortlandt Park, you see everybody, every nationality, every age, people from all different socioeconomic groups rub up against each other in an incredibly congenial way.
I will add to that because it literally reflects the Bronx. Because if you
Yeah,
say, okay, so then diverse people who live
right.
close together, et cetera, and they live that way in the Bronx. All right, we got to take a break, and I'm going to tell a very quick story. And this is the first time I would ever, and probably the last time I'll ever tell this story in public. Judy is kind enough to allow the Van Cortlandt Park Alliance to use her and her husband, whose name is
Ian Johnson.
of Ian's home for some of our annual outings. You know what I'm about to tell. This is so crazy. So and it's very cordial. You get a glass of wine, and it's very nice, and everybody getting together, and it's really part of the thing that binds us in the park. So I go up to this little makeshift table, and there's a very nice man standing there. And he's nicely dressed. I don't know, maybe he was wearing a bow tie. So, and I said, well, can I have, whatever the punch they were serving or something? And he poured me a glass. And as I would do at any event that I attend, I took $1 out of my pocket and I put it on the table and said, thank you for pouring me a drink. I mean, that's what you do. I think that's what you try and do, especially in a social situation. And he looked at me like I was nuts. It turns out it was the host. It was Ian, Judy's husband, and I was tipping him after being invited to a party to his house. Pretty
One of
good.
my favorite stories.
Yes, it's one of my least favorite, and you have the guts to tell this in public.
It's a
Anyway,
great story.
my producer Anderson is telling me I got to do this. So we're going to take a break. Then we're going to come back. We're going to show video, and we're going to talk about all the activities. We're not going to have enough time, but we're going to try. We'll be right back on the Bronx Buzz podcast.
19.7% of Bronxites currently experience food insecurity. Meanwhile, instead of these nice, colorful foods, this is the best food that they have access to. If this sounds like you, there are a bunch of resources to get healthy food for free or cheap. If you want to help, you might consider donating or volunteering in one of these places. Community fridges like this one are all over the city, and allow New Yorkers to conveniently donate extra food to people who might need it. Go to this link and find your nearest one. Food banks and pop-up events like these provide millions of healthy meals to families in need. These organizations are distributing meals to Bronxites as we speak, and are always accepting donations and volunteers.
Okay, back with you on the Bronx Buzz podcast. It is Gary Axelbank, and I'm with my buddy Judy Mills Johnson, newly elected chair of the Van Cortlandt Park Alliance. Let's just get right to issues. No, before we get to issues, I want to tell everybody something about the Van Cortlandt Park Alliance. Van Cortlandt Park Alliance preserves, supports, and promotes the ecology, recreation, cultural arts, and history of Van Cortlandt Park. The park, in case you didn't know, where have you been, is home to the country's first public golf course, which we're going to talk about, the oldest house in the Bronx, and the Bronx's largest freshwater lake, which is now, of course, renamed to be the Mill Pond, but that's another story. What is daylighting of Tibbetts Brook, and why is the Van Cortlandt Park Alliance thrilled that this massive environmental project is going through?
So the daylighting of Tibbetts Brook will restore the brook and create an avenue that can take the rainwater out of our sewer system. So when we have heavy rains, our sewer system is overloaded, and fresh water and sewage water gets pushed into the river. So not a good thing. So now we'll have the fresh water not mixing with the sewage water and going the way it originally did into the Hudson. And in addition, it gets us to be able to expand the Putnam Greenway. And there was property that was acquired from the CSX Railway by the city, which was abandoned. And now we can open that up, create more parkland, and even more exciting than that,
More exciting than creating parkland? Stop.
Yes, yes.
Can't be.
It will give access to Van Cortlandt Park from the south. People who traditionally haven't really had access because there's so many streets to cross. So it'll be closer to Bailey Playground.
So, and for people who don't know, it'll be parallel to the Major Deegan Expressway.
Right.
It used to be
Right.
Doro up there.
Right.
And right there. And this to me is exciting because a massive environmental project that a lot of people have wanted. I think the effort is 20 years old, is finally getting funded. When are we putting shovels in the ground? Just something.
Well, what I do know is the project's fully designed. I know that they did start last year with the clearing of invasive species from Hester and Piero's Mill Pond, and that will continue this year. Construction will begin in the next couple of years, and it's going to be beautiful. It's going to really restore the beautiful natural area around the pond, and it's going to be a great
what I gotta just compare it, because of course where I sit, I see a lot of stuff all over the Bronx and all over the city. This is a better use for parkland than having casinos built. I mean,
I cannot argue with you there.
So the fact that it's coming in our home park and the city's greatest park in Van Cortlandt Park is like right on. Okay, Thursday, May 15th is the springtime shindig,
Yes.
honoring Herb Barrett, James Hendon, Commissioner of New York City Veteran Affairs. Who is Herb Barrett?
Oh, so Herb Barrett is a 92-year-old Korean War veteran.
Wow.
I have been told that he volunteers at the VA, right?
Right.
Quite a man. We have a memorial grove, and he's really the steward of that memorial grove. And so it's lovely to be able to honor him for what he does, which is quiet work that supports veterans and supports the park. He's a nice guy.
So people should check out vancortland.org and and get right in there and join us. And of course, there is tickets and all that stuff. But you'll be supporting all of us, and you'll be supporting life in the Bronx. So you check it out. It is Thursday, May 15th, right?
And it's fun. There's great music, good food, dancing. We're all really fun to party with. And you're right, Gary. It's a great way to
support the bartender you like, you can give the bartender $1 bill.
Yeah.
Just like I did. Nonetheless, Juneteenth is. You know what? Let's save that. I want to do the golf course thing. So we've talked about this being the oldest public golf course in the nation. It was the first time a public golf course was created. let's see, I could do the math. 30 years ago was the 100th anniversary. So we're in the 130th anniversary of that golf course. When they rang the bell for the 100th anniversary, I was there. BronxNet Television was there. And here we take a look 30 years ago at the 100th anniversary of the nation's oldest golf course in Cortlandt Park. With the ringing of the city's centennial bell and the sinking of this commemorative putt, the Parks Department officially acknowledged the 100th anniversary of the Cortlandt Park Golf Course. Established as a public course in 1895 by then Parks Commissioner Theodore Roosevelt, the course still has some of its original flavor, like the 13th hole, which is complete with a water trap that has been trapping Bronx golfers for a century. And along with the pastoral expanse of the 6,100-yard par 70 course, the original clubhouse still stands today, complete with the 100-year-old locker room that was depicted in the movie Wall Street.
I don't throw darts at a board. I bet on sure things.
I am not just another broker, Mr. Gecko. If you give me another chance, I'll prove that to you.
Golf courses across the nation have historically been run by private country clubs, thereby excluding large segments of the population. The beauty of the Cortlandt Park Golf Course is that it is a public golf course, founded 100 years ago.
This opened up the sport of golf to thousands of people who had never played before, never had the chance to. It became extremely popular. Over 200 cities copied us and opened municipal golf courses by 1927.
To underscore the value of this public golf course, the course record of 62 was set in 1983 by this South Bronx man, Willie Phillips.
There's no affirmative action in golf. The guy with the best record is the guy who did it.
As for the next 100 years of golf at Cortlandt Park, as part of the week-long celebration, the Metropolitan Golfers Association held its City Juniors Championships, and this youngster, Elizabeth Imperiola of Throgs Neck, shot a 79. And Charles Rollo of Queens came within 6 of the course record, shooting a 68. And then, after all the ceremony and hoopla, the public was back on the links at Cortlandt, trying to get that little ball into that little hole that is agonizingly hundreds of yards away. From the oldest public golf course in the nation, Gary Axelbank for BXNY. Well, there you go. This was 30 years ago, so we're in the 130th year.
Oh my goodness.
Golf course is still, I'm reasonably well groomed and still very popular. I always see people in golf carts zipping by, especially with
So
the weather.
busy. So busy. I know.
Go ahead. You wanted to say something about it?
I'm not a golfer, but I have a good friend who is and is there all the time. So pretty incredible.
You think about all the different things we've already talked about, and we haven't even really begun to talk about a lot. And I mentioned Juneteenth. So we have a whole list, which we're going to show, but a whole list of activities. The enslaved people's burial ground just got a boost. So why don't you talk a little bit about that, if you would?
Yeah, that's really exciting and a project very dear to my heart. So we got a grant from the Mellon Foundation to reimagine the enslaved African people's burial ground. And it is a spot in our park that holds so much history and so much depth and soul that people are there that we need to honor in the way they should be honored. And we have a grant for community engagement. That's what this grant is for, so that we can really figure out how to pay proper respect to the people who built the park.
I remember
African people and the indigenous people.
I remember that, that area before it was overgrown, so you could actually see kind of remnants of the stones. And finally, to do it, look, we waited 20 years for daylighting. Here we're waiting, 150 years.
Right.
Yes.
And it's a really important it's a cornerstone of the history of that park. And that's one of the reasons that the pond is named for Hester and Peguero, who were enslaved Africans who were integral to the Van Cortlandt Manor and the history in the manor. And we have that museum space that tells you so much. And now this is another spot that really needs to be, we really are looking for community engagement to help us understand how this should be laid out in the park and what it should look like and what kind of gathering.
How it should best remember and pay
Yes.
respect to
Yes.
the people who built this incredible
Yes.
park.
Yes.
Let's just talk about some of the events coming up. Hold on, we got a list. We're going to put that list up on the screen. The first thing from now is the Pinkster Festival, which is Saturday, May 3rd from 12 to 4.
Right.
You want to
So-
mention about that?
Yeah, Pinkster is kind of interesting to me. Was once a major holiday in the 17th century in New York. It's the Dutch name for the Christian event of Pentecost.
Okay.
And for enslaved and free people of African descent, Pinkster morphed into a unique holiday, which incorporates African rituals, traditions, and it's considered New York's first African-American holiday. So
we are first at doing these things all the time.
we are.
I just want to move on so we can get to all the events. We already talked about May 15th for the shindig. There's a community tea Saturday, May 31st from 2 to 5. The New York Philharmonic comes on June 5th.
A wonderful event.
You can't match
So
it.
much fun.
I see also, I'm going through it, so we have to get everything in there. Barefoot Dancing, Saturday, June 7th from 1 to 3. We've mentioned Juneteenth, June 19th from 6:30 to 8. And just rescheduled because of the crappy weather we had. Family Fun Day in Woodlawn at Indian Field, Saturday, June 28th from 1 to 4. There will be movies in September. And that's not all, because you can play soccer, you can play cricket, you can, remember our veterans, you can go horseback riding, you can take a hike, you can do anything you want to do in Van Cortlandt Park. Judy.
And volunteer in the park.
Excuse me. Yes. If you love it like I love it, then be part of it, because the volunteers are what really keep it going, and why, for example, the parade grounds is the most beautiful place in the Bronx.
Yeah, we could use you.
Judy Mills Johnson, congratulations. We in the Bronx look forward to you and all the people on the board and all the people, especially those great workers in the park who make it the best park in New York City, Van Cortlandt.
We appreciate that. Thank you, Gary, for this chance to talk to you.
Great. So we got to run because I always talk too much. And so at this point, I will say a good night. Thank you for joining us in the Bronx Buzz. And if the curtain don't fall and that creek don't rise, we'll be back next week.